Welcome back to my channel, where you can hear strange, wonderful stories from individuals who experience them. If you listen with an open mind, even if you're skeptical, you'll notice some strange things going on that you wouldn't normally notice. With that being said, if you have any glitches or strange stories, comment or send to storyscary152@gmail.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The following is food for thought about how life may be at times. It is not one of our typical stories on this channel. Hi, I'm electronic_leg_7194 on Reddit, and people show ridiculous kindness, or on the contrary, a negative indifference. It is a phenomenon that I have discovered for several years, and that never ceases to amaze me, is the way people behave in my presence. Some days are really unrealistic in the sense that people will be ridiculously nice, helpful, or even paternal to me. I can walk in the streets and lots of people will turn to me, smile, or even approach me as if my presence was positive. It's as if I'm in some kind of movie. It seems so positive. One day a woman I didn't even know offered to buy me something, and the people in a candy store acted like I was their own child. But other days it's the opposite effect, that is, people will be totally indifferent to me, either as if I didn't exist, or with a reaction of suspicion. They will behave in an almost robotic way, never make eye contact, and when they notice my presence, they will act in a relatively negative way, as if I were some kind of vampire, or that my energies were just strange and worrying. Sometimes on the same day, a few days ago, I was feeling hellish and very negative energies, and I noticed that people were refusing to make eye contact with me, and some were even acting in an almost robotic way. And when I met a person, they scanned me from head to toe with the most concerned look in the world. They didn't seem to know how to react to my presence, and others in their look were just negative and concerned. However, later in the day, these same people who seemed really suspicious by their presence alone, even in their gestures and their very negative looks, became extremely friendly in a way that was just too intense. Also on the bus, there was a woman who seemed to be hypnotized and stayed standing next to me on the bus, glaring at me at times. It's been several years, and often people will be either extremely indifferent, sometimes in a very negative way, as if I were some kind of vampire and alien, and could feel my energies were just negative. And other times even people I don't know will show a kindness, or even a paternalism, just too intense. It's not just normal behavior, because sometimes it's the same people, and most of the time with too much intensity, whether it's people looking at me in an angelic way in public transportation, as if I were a celebrity, or on the contrary moments where even my relatives will behave as if I had no real existence, or worse, as if I was some kind of negative entity hiding under human appearance. I'm Sirwellsy on Reddit, and I experienced a glitch I can't explain while driving to work. Backstory: I used to be a cop in the rural USA. One day I get a check well-being call. I drive to the address, which is just a few minutes outside town. When pulling into the property, I get an eerie feeling. I go to the residence, which was an older modular trailer home. The front door had a diamond-shaped window. After knocking for a bit, I began to hear noises sounding like walking sounds from the barn next to the residence. I was shining my flashlight around the property as it was night, and had the feeling I was going to turn around and see someone standing in the window of the door. I checked the barn, and could not locate anyone or the source of the sound. After several minutes of knocking and no answer, I returned to service. The glitch: I left the residence and drove back towards town. While on my way, I called a friend or coworker, and was telling him about the strange feeling and sounds on the call. I was on the phone with him for over 15 minutes and realized I was nowhere near town. After several more minutes of driving, I turned around and headed back toward the residence. I arrived at the driveway in a little over a minute, turned around again and drove back towards town, and made it in just a few minutes. Don't know why it took so long. Can't explain it at all. Bonus: to cap off the creepiness, after I arrived back in town, the individual I went to check on called into my dispatch and thanked me for coming to check on him. He said he was watching me the entire time. I'm MissWiggely2 on Reddit. A box fell and landed higher up than where it started. I work at FedEx loading the trucks. Last night of this morning during my shift, I placed a small box in a little gap between two larger ones about 2 feet off the floor. A few minutes later, as I was turned around to grab another one, I heard a box fall behind me. I even felt it hit the back of my shoulder as it fell. I turned again to put whatever had fallen back, but there was nothing on the floor behind me, and the small box that was between the two big ones was now lying on top of them, about 5 feet off the floor. It was definitely the same box. The gap was empty again, and this was the only box I had gotten with a specific brand name on it in the entire truck. I have no idea how this could have happened. I just put it back and kept on working, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'm genuinely so confused as to how a box can fall 3 feet up and over to the right. I have no idea how this could have happened. I just put it back and kept on working, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'm genuinely so confused as to how a box can fall 3 feet up and over to the right. I'm the flame one on Reddit, and I wish I understood those things too. When I was a child, now 61 female, I felt similar things often. I mostly didn't even tell anybody about it because I'm a pretty internal person, and I tended to figure this was just how it was. It was always in bed. At night, I would be scared of the touches, sometimes more like pushes on my back, but in the morning, it would just make me curious. It stopped over time as I grew up, but I did have an experience once when my husband was gone on a business trip, after the kids were grown and gone. I was in bed asleep when I thought I felt someone in bed beside me. After I got the courage, I sat up and looked, and thought I saw someone there. To me it was a man with a hat on, but imagination. Then I turned on the bedside lamp and of course, no one was there. I got up, peed, paced around, and then went back to bed, turned the light off. Once I was settled down and facing away from him, I both felt and heard a distinct tap on the covers on my hip. I froze. After like a whole minute or more, another tap, then a third. Clear as if a real person had been behind me, trying to get my attention or being playful. Anyway, that was my once grown-up experience. I'm interesting age 773 on Reddit. My story is about a past life as a cat. Saw another post about this and remembered that I actually have one of my own. I still have memories of what I think was my past life. Even now that I'm much older, I can still vaguely recall memories of being a cat. I remember thinking from a very young age, around 3 to 4, that in my past life I was a cat. Keep in mind that no one had ever told me about past lives before. I just somehow knew that I used to be a cat. Even weirder, I think it was my family's cat before I was born. I had a dream of an orange cat, once when I was little. It was just sitting on a table staring at me. When I was a little older, around 7 to 8, my family started talking about the cat they had that died before I was born. I suddenly started describing what the cat looked like in detail, and they were shocked. They asked me how I knew what she looked like, and I said I didn't know, I just had a feeling. I still have very faint memories of this cat. I can even vaguely picture her in my head. I even remember that my favorite game as a kid was to make believe I was a cat. I would do this pretty much every day until I got a little older, and wasn't interested in it anymore. I don't know if this was actually my past life, but I'm amazed that I still remember, because I think you're supposed to forget this kind of thing by now. Anyways, I thought this was cool, so I thought I would share it. I'm Frosted Cinnamon Eggs on Reddit. I always wonder, if could we be constantly waking up to new realities? While watching a video about a man who has been living with a 7 to 30-second memory since 1985, Clive Waring. The idea that we could be ourselves constantly arriving at new realities without being aware of it occurred to me. This idea makes me think of my earliest memory, which was the week before my 4th birthday. My little brother and I used to celebrate our birthdays on the same day since we were less than a year apart, and his birthday was the week before mine. I can remember waking up and feeling like I should act in a way that would allow me to fit in. Could it be that I left one reality and moved to this new one at that moment? Perhaps I had just died the moment before. What about those moments where we are suddenly brought back to Earth, wondering where the last several minutes went, which we rationalize as being lost in thought or daydreaming, but can't recall what we were thinking or dreaming about? Did we actually just switch to a slightly new reality, which we immediately accept? Could it be that sometimes remnants of the past reality conflicting with the new one slip through? Hi, my name is NsigNiphiKant on Reddit, and I will title my story, B is for Barbara, and you will understand why later. Just before my oldest daughter turned 3, she finally found her voice. Let's just say it was a big deal, because up until then, she'd been completely nonverbal. Then, almost overnight, our girl was talking. Okay came first, then no, followed by mama and dada. It was nothing short of a miracle for us. She hadn't been speaking very long at all, weeks at most, when I was giving her a bath one night. The bubbly water was filled with various toys, colorful pipes and jellyfish, foam letters, and ducks. For as long as I live, I'll never forget how my daughter glanced at 2 foam letters stuck to the bathtub wall. She pointed at each in turn and said aloud, very clearly, B for Barbara, D for Deborah. And I froze. The hairs on the back of my neck rose. These weren't names I'd ever mentioned. There were no great-aunt Barbaras or Deborahs in the family. And all this was coming from a girl who had only just mastered simple words like more and please. Fast forward a few more months and my now chatterbox girl started giving me snippets about this woman Barbara, who had evidently once meant a great deal to her. Barbara went to London after she got married. She lives in a big house. Barbara and I wrote each other letters. Barbara loves the ocean. Her favorite color is blue. Barbara loves swimming and is a good swimmer. Deborah taught her how to swim. And then there'd often be tears because she just misses Barbara so darn much. I also learned that Deborah was the oldest, then Jane, I think, then my daughter, then Barbara. And her other mother was named Maisie. Finally, one January day when she was 4.5 years old, my daughter came to me, absolutely distraught, crying because she was losing her memories of Barbara. I promised her I'd treasure them for her, that I'd remind her of them one day when she was older. It was a heartbreaking scene, the two of us holding each other, my daughter mourning a woman she'd once loved in another time, another place. She told me she was keeping one memory, a very special one, and that she was going to bury it deep down in her heart forever. The strangest thing is that only a day or two after I'd conceived my daughter, an older woman I'd never met named Barbara had sent me a Facebook friend request. I wish I hadn't declined her request so quickly. It might well have been nothing, but now I'm just not so sure. If anyone knows a Barbara that meets this description, by the way, please do feel free to let me know. I'm wassadoin on Reddit, and my dog kept going up the stairs after death. When I was a kid, I lived in a really tall house. There was a central set of stairs that went 4 stories high that the house was built around. My parents' room was on the 4th floor while I lived on the 3rd floor right next to the stairs. My childhood dog, this mutt named Bueller, would climb up the stairs most nights to go sleep with my parents, while occasionally sleeping with one of my siblings on the floor below me. Anytime Bueller was walking around the house, you could hear the clacks of his paws on the wooden planks. He would never head up at a consistent time either, going from as early as 8 to as late as midnight. Fast forward, it's July 2014, I'm 17 and Bueller had just passed. The house felt really empty for a while. We had gotten so accustomed to his clacks that it was just odd not hearing them. But they kept on coming. For about 2 weeks after his death, I, along with my parents, heard Bueller climb the stairs every night. The sound was unmistakable. I had heard this noise for years on end. It was the same pattern and same rhythm as Bueller in life, except there was no Bueller anymore. There was no other pattern going on, the house wasn't especially creaky, and we didn't have any other pets than him. It was never at the same time every night either. When it became late July, we stopped hearing Bueller's clacks. I asked my parents if they heard the noises and they agreed that it had to be Bueller coming up the stairs. I will say I never went to see what it was, just because I knew definitively what it was. It was Bueller going to sleep with my parents. I'm on Helicopter 1141 on Reddit. Can you answer me why was there a ball of light in my room? What was it? A month ago at night, I was awake in my room sitting in bed. No TV, no computer, no lights on. The window was covered with a curtain, and suddenly a ball of light, it was about the size of a baseball, appeared. It appeared and disappeared a few times and then ended up appearing and disappearing above my head. I never had this happen to me before. It was 100% paranormal. I am sure it did something to me as it ended up in my head. I have seen UFOs in the sky, but this was in my room. I still can't believe it. Hi, I'm Professional Raw 3332 on Reddit, and my glitch is about teleporting bunnies. My daughter has 3 rabbits, 2 of which are kept in a 2-story, very large rabbit hutch on our enclosed back porch. The top story is all wood, the bottom is like chicken wire, but much thicker, and the holes are tiny, nothing but hay or food pellets can pass through them. A few months ago, we had suspected that the female was pregnant, but wasn't sure. We have a back door to our home that you have to walk through this enclosed porch to get to. I always use this door, coming and going, because I park in the back. Anyway, I went to leave for work this morning, and there was a newborn bunny on the porch floor. It took me a minute to realize what it was because a baby bunny being there was illogical. It freaked me out, but I figure there must be a hole in the hutch somewhere. Even though it doesn't make sense for a newborn bunny, eyes sealed shut, to have found a hole and crawled through almost to the other side of the porch. I called my 15-year-old daughter down to take care of it so I wouldn't be late to work. I told her to search for more bunnies, just in case, and to find the hole they crawled out of. She texted me not much later telling me that there were 3 babies altogether and no hole. That's impossible. There has to be a hole somewhere. Go look again so they don't get out again. She swears there's no hole anywhere, but I figure I'll check it out when I get home. Sure enough, absolutely no hole, and the hutch is completely intact. I can almost accept that maybe one newborn blind bunny squeezed itself through a way too small hole that it shouldn't be able to fit through, and managed to crawl to almost the other side of the porch, but 3 of them? I don't know if it's a glitch or what, but we still have not been able to find an explanation for this. The following story is about a conscious dream, or I don't know how to explain this story. It's very strange, and you have to listen closely to follow along. I was lost a few times listening. I'm affectionate Sock 899 on Reddit, and missed is another incident where there was a case of me bringing back something did cost someone's life. On side of things, I do want to get to the bottom of all these incidents, and this seems from what everyone is saying and have been telling me to be jumping through dimensions, that I really don't want to have to look at the things I've done and take into account what I've been forced to do as an actual thing that's happened. I saw it as a dream, I went to bed, and I woke up in a weird club area. The me that wasn't me was much stronger physically than me. He was in a club, planning to meet with some friends since they had graduated and to celebrate. But the club was weird and required invite only. I had a fake invite and I got through, but the owner saw me and thought it was suspicious, so he pointed it out. Pretty much I got into a fight with him. Now everyone, when they talk about fights in their dreams, says that they seem incredibly weak, but I didn't. I felt strong. So then I punched him, and quickly grabbed some food and told my friends to run, since I guess they also snuck in. Then some women and security guards along with the owner grabbed me, and I started to take hits. I was in danger, and then he hit me and I blacked out. In the blackout I was him, and he was now another version of me. This version of me I've actually visited a couple of times, and I like visiting him, to be honest. That version of me is a much older me, who's much more into mechanical engineering. The planet he's on, since I've seen it, is kind of like metallic veins, and the human life in the veins, and then life is overflowing outside the veins. And he noticed us, and we both were there. I can talk about the me that's in this weird veiny world. But anyways, he said, "You need help here." And then the me that was in the bar fight woke back up, and the first thought was he had to be on some sort of drugs, since everything seemed all fuzzy, or maybe it was just an effect of the mind. But he was holding a semi-short sword that was pure black, and he started using it to rip into the owner and the security and then the waitresses. I was there, I did that. And then he had the same experience I did a few days ago, where everything is here but not. Anyways, I in the club was there holding the blade after killing someone, but was also falling down a weird cliff in a world that had the same feeling as the one of the veiny worlds. But then I wasn't in first perspective of him but myself. The dream ended with him giving me the sword, and I woke up. I was in a semi-weird position, and I was holding the sword, except it was a black dust. It perfectly resembled the sword, but it was just black dust. I brought some of it as a sample to school, and I don't know much about rocks. Some of my friends identified it as obsidian. When I woke up, I did have some blood on me too. Not mine though. It hurts me to think that I had control, because I feel like I did and I killed someone. It's traumatizing if anything. Deep down, I don't want this to be real. I've been in their perspective feelings, and doing everything they do. In very few instances can I take some control of them, but they know I'm there. Some try to keep me trapped and others do awful things that I'm forced to do. I'm btbamcolors on Reddit and a long-time sub-follower, and just experienced my first glitch, and I'm a believer. It's a small thing, but it happened, and I'm either crazy or something in the universe fucked up. I recently decided to try a new brand of pre-workout and ordered 2 distinct flavors online: ocean water and blue raspberry. Now, one of the unique things about this brand, which does other supplements as well, is that the scoop inside each container is situated in these ridges near the lid when you first open it, so it won't be buried in the powder. I tried the ocean water first because it was a hot day and it sounded refreshing, plus I was curious about the flavor. It was great, I love coconut. Next time I tried the blue raspberry. I hesitated to open both right away since I only use 2 to 3 scoops a week, but decided to go for it. Also good, but I prefer the ocean water. Today I went to get a scoop of the ocean water, and it still had the freshness seal on top. When I removed the seal, the scoop was back in the ridges as if the container was never opened. I live alone and only received one container of each. Unless my dog is playing an elaborate prank, the universe done goofed. I'm a believer in the simulation now. Hi, I'm wassadoin on Reddit, and I think my socks and the snack I bought on my lunch glitched. So I've been following this sub for a while, but have never posted any supposed glitches that have happened to me, because I doubt my memory a lot. However, these two things happened only a day apart, and I'm 100% certain I'm not just remembering wrong or going crazy. The first glitch has to do with a pair of my favorite socks. They have frogs on them, and I love them. I specifically remember being really sad a couple of months ago because one sock out of the pair had gotten a hole in the toe. That feeling bothers me a lot, so I stopped wearing that pair of socks. A couple of days ago, going through my socks to throw away ones that don't fit or have holes, etc., I come across my frog socks again. But they both are completely fine. No hole in the toe. I know it was these socks that had a hole because they are my only frog socks and I love them so much. So weird but also really cool because now I can wear one of my favorite socks again, thanks universe. This glitch was less than 24 hours after the socks. On my hour lunch break, I usually get fast food, sit in my truck to eat it, and then go to the gas station for a drink and snack to last me the rest of my shift. That day I wanted a Mountain Dew and one of those smaller cans of Pringles. I specifically wanted the sour cream onion green can. The flavors are on different shelf heights, and the green can is on the very bottom shelf. I know I grabbed the green can because I squatted all the way down to grab it off the bottom shelf. I set my two things on the counter to ring up. I remember spacing out a bit, just staring at the card reader until the transaction went through. When I saw remove card, I kind of snapped out of my spacey feeling and went to grab my two things. But my chip can was red. The original Pringle flavor. That flavor is on a whole different shelf. I know I'd grabbed the green one, but it was suddenly red. I just shook it off and left with my stuff because I didn't want the employees or other customers to think I was crazy. I've never had glitches this apparent that I am so sure of. I know it isn't just bad memory, but I feel crazy. I don't know what else to do other than post it here and see if anyone else finds it weird or has an explanation. On volces on Reddit, and a really loud creepy old song woke me and my girlfriend, and we don't know where it could have come from. Little after 7 a.m., we woke up to what sounded like an old song, maybe from the 50s. Johnny Cash's voice, but even lower. And the skies are gray, repeated 3 times with some birds chirping. Then, stopped by itself. Only 2 speakers in the apartment. The one connected to the PC doesn't have Bluetooth and computer was locked and nothing was open on it. When I played sound it was muted, and the soundbar for the TV, but the TV is turned off. We are completely baffled and don't understand what just happened. It was also much louder than any of our speakers could have been. It's hard to recall what the sound was exactly as we were deep asleep. Happened about 30 minutes ago. We have no explanation and we also can't find the song. Song sounded like a sample was glitching and replaying. Okay, so I would like to summarize everything and give some potential solutions. We live in a new high-rise that is perfectly sound insulated. The sound had to come from inside. When I say the song, don't think of it as an actual song. It sounded like something manufactured for a horror game to be as creepy as possible. No one would listen to a song like this for pleasure. It's a song built to make you feel uneasy. It's not something you'd find on Spotify. It sounded like something I'd never heard before. It almost sounded unreal. Even though there was crackling, it was like it was put there on purpose. And the quality of the sound was nothing I'd ever heard before. It was better than any sound quality I've ever heard. It sounded more analog than digital. It's very hard to explain. It just sounded so real. A very depressing song about waking up to dark skies. Voice of the narrator in Superhot VR. Delightful birds chirping and also crackling. Lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. It was about as loud as a smoke alarm when it goes off. The song was very loud and felt like it was coming from the environment. Perfect surround sound like wearing a VR headset, but much louder. We have a soundbar in front of the TV that is Bluetooth enabled. I have the Logitech gaming set of speakers, which are not Bluetooth or wireless enabled and also no antennae. Note that neither the TV nor the computer could play these sounds. The computer speakers were on mute when I tried to play something. The soundbar was off. There is a ceiling speaker that I think belongs to the smoke alarm. I'm NsigNiphiKant on Reddit, and what just happened. Last night, as I relaxed to drift off to sleep, I focused on my higher self, welcoming any experiences without expectations. I thought I was still awake, but in reality, I was not. In my dream, I fell asleep on the floor next to my bed, while my real body was still in bed, dreaming that I was still awake in bed trying to fall asleep. I apologize if this gets confusing. In my dream, I felt myself leaving my body that was sleeping on the floor. It was such a fluid motion, and I was happy to be exiting my body. I knew what was happening. As I exited my body, I turned to face my sleeping floor self, fully aware that I was having an OBE and wanting to see my sleeping self as proof. I felt elated and happy and also completely conscious. As soon as I went to look at myself, I zipped back into my body on the floor and I woke up on the floor, and now I'm thinking I'm actually awake, but I'm not. Then I went through what felt like sleep paralysis within my dream. I have sleep paralysis, though I've never had it in a dream. I was terrified of something. I was trying so hard to scream to my spouse, "Get the baby. Get the baby." In reality, I fell asleep with her next to me. I was terrified something was going to get her, or that the sleep paralysis would hurt her. I went through the typical awake, asleep loop, yet still never actually waking up. I just think I'm awake in my dream. Then I finally zip all the way back into my dreaming body on the bed and wake all the way up. It took me a few moments to realize none of that was real, and I was in my real bed now, not the one I had been awake dreaming in. I prayed over my girls and waited a few minutes before going back to sleep. I've been trying to make sense of it. Does anyone have any insight into what the heck happened to me? Thank you. I'm TerrorNaEsquinaPod on Reddit, and my glitch is very strange. I went into a restroom in an Arabic restaurant, and I came out of the restroom in an old building. Sorry about my English, I'm a Brazilian guy. I experienced it when I was younger, but still scares me and my dad a lot. I'm from the south of Minas Gerais. My uncle has a spare parts store, and he needed to go to Sao Paulo to buy some stuff. He doesn't know Sao Paulo well enough, so he asked my father to go with him, and I went with them. Okay, after a long day walking on one of the busiest streets of Sao Paulo, 25 de Maio, we stopped at an Arabic restaurant so I could go to the restroom and eat something. I have 26 now, but at that time I was about 8 years old. We entered the restaurant, and my dad put me in the restroom and waited for me outside. Now, this is the glitch. When I came out of the restroom, I was in a completely different place. It was a lobby from a building, old and tall. So I went back, closed the door, and tried to get out again, and nothing. Same place, the lobby. I was creeped out and didn't know what to do. I think I tried to do it about 3 times, so I decided to go to the street and look for the place. I was tempted to cross the street. If I had done it, probably I won't be here. But I kept the same sidewalk and turned left. I walked a little more and reached the restaurant. My father says that I came out on a different hallway and took the wrong side, but the door of the restroom is sided to the hall. My father was looking at it and didn't see me. Raffle is the name of the place on 25 de Maio, a popular place in Sao Paulo. I looked on Google Maps to find out the building, but nothing comes to my memory. We've come to the end of this collection, and this series was super weird. Don't you think so? Comment which one was the weirdest for you. I would like to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and send your stories and glitches to storyscary152@gmail.com to feature in the next collection.